It's Monday, October 23. In the headlines, Labour Minister heads to Canada to resolve farm workers' issues. In business news, we meet this week's young boss, plus your usual market updates. Regionally, Guyana and Cuba ink MOU to provide support services in forestry and agriculture. Internationally, China and the Philippines accuse each other over collisions in a disputed South China Sea. And in sports, Riga girls stumped by Mexico, losing 7-0 at the 2023 Pan Am Games in Santiago, Chile. This is the news on PBC Jamaica. I'm Simone Absalom Gale. Minister of Labour and Social Security Pernell Charles Jr. will be heading to Canada this week to do a thorough check of the Seasonal Agricultural Workers Program, in which thousands of Jamaicans participate annually. This was disclosed by Prime Minister Andrew Holness during a diaspora town hall meeting in Ottawa, Canada on Thursday. Last year, the government commissioned a fact-finding team to look into the program, which found that most of the Jamaican workers were satisfied with their working and living conditions. Mr. Holness shared the update while responding to a question posed regarding the program.
If the program is contravening the laws of Canada, the standards, principles and policies of Canada, if it is convening the laws of Jamaica, our policies, principles, and expectations and standards, then there is no argument. We want to know. So the challenge we faced is that some participants were saying there wasn't a problem, and some were saying there is a problem. So it is a duty of the government, obviously, to take any complaint seriously and to investigate it. And that is why Minister Charles is tasked to come back to Canada, because there was a previous delegation before, to come back and do a thorough check.
For her part, Minister of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade, Senator Kamina Johnson-Smith, said notwithstanding the report of the fact-finding team, the government has a responsibility to investigate further if concerns continue to be raised.
To make further inquiries about the reports that do not match up with the document which the government of Jamaica received. So we're not taking it as a given. She indicated that Minister Charles's mission during his visit to Canada is to meet with employers as well as the relevant authorities to make further inquiries. Additionally, Senator Johnson-Smith informed that there is a committee in the Canadian Senate on which a Jamaican-born senator sits, which is charged with inquiring into the program and is making recommendations. This is a process, the whole framework of the Farm Work Program and the individual program, because remember, it's more than one. And it may be that the problems are with one program and not with another. So the scope of the problem is being assessed as well from the Canadian perspective, and we're engaging with them and promoting and encouraging that work to take place. Because you want to preserve the benefit, but not at the cost, not at all costs.
The Statistical Institute of Jamaica, Statin, says based on the July 2023 survey, there were 1.3 million persons employed in Jamaica, and that's 47,100 more persons than in July 2022. Director General of the Institute, Carol Coy, delivered the data while presenting during a virtual quarterly press brief recently.
Relative to the increase in the size of the labor force, most persons who gained employment were previously unemployed.
The Statin director says unemployed females accounted for 54.6% of the increase in employed persons.
The number of employed females increased by 25,700 to 605,200, while the number of employed males increased by 21,400 to 709,900.
She says employment increased across most occupational groups except for skilled agriculture and fisheries workers.
which declined by 8,500 to 173,400 persons. The largest increase was in elementary occupations, which increased by 23,500 persons.
The July labor force survey was fielded between July and September 2023, with the reference week being June 18 to June 24, 2023. A new national backyard gardening program will be rolled out on November 1. Minister of Agriculture, Fisheries and Mining, Floyd Green, says 3,000 backyard gardening kits will be distributed island-wide on a first-come, first-serve basis. He made the announcement at the World Food Day National Ceremony and Exposition in Newell High School in St. Elizabeth last week. He says each recipient will be partnered with the Rural Agricultural Development Authority, RADA, which will provide essential guidance and track the progress of the gardens. Minister Green emphasized that this program is not only about promoting agriculture, but is part of a holistic approach to food security. Time now for the Business Report with Danita Rodney.
Welcome to the Business Report. I'm Danita Rodney. This week's young boss is making his mark in the shipping industry. He is CEO of SSN Shipping Consultants, Sheldon Plummer.
I'm Sheldon Plummer. I'm Managing Director of SSN Shipping Consultancy Services. Our business entails online shopping, logistics, anything to do with shipping, sea freight, air freight. That's what we do. We mostly cater to persons who already have their credit card or prepaid debit card. To use our services, you would have to sign up on our website. That's ssnshipserve.com, and you register there. You get your US mailing address, and from there you just register with any US shipper and online store, and you'll be able to start doing your shopping from there. We're taking it one step at a time. There are challenges, as well as there are months where things run pretty smooth, and we're basically in a stage of growing, and we're break-evening at this moment, so that's a good sign. I think the country needs to do more in terms of the infrastructure. I think access to loans and stuff like that is a challenge as well. In terms of commercial spaces, they're very limited, and a lot of the cost to acquire a commercial space in a very desirable location, it's very high. For now, we're servicing the corporate area. Our intent is to branch off in other parishes eventually, but for persons outside of Kingston, we normally send stuff via Tara, or we send stuff by Knutsford Express, so persons will still have access to us. The current location is at 23 Haining Road, Kingston 5. It's right across from DHL, so most times when people are asking for directions, that is the landmark that we give them. For anybody starting a business, I'd say you would have to be very committed to it. It is something that takes a lot of your time, both with your family, friends, your social life. Even your health suffers as a result of starting a business. So you have to be committed to it and have people who can build a support base that you can rely on. You can find us at SSN Shipping on Instagram, SSN Shipping on Facebook as well. Google ads, there. Once you go on Google, you'll be privy to that information as well.
Now for your market updates. In foreign exchange trading for Friday, October 20, the US dollar sold for an average of $155.36. The Canadian dollar ended trading at $116.45. The pound sterling traded for $191.81, and the euro sold for $168.08. In GSE trading, the GSE index declined by over 3,898 points. The junior market index declined by over 14 points. The combined market index declined by over 3,774 points, and the All Jamaican Composite Index declined by over 1,604 points. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 102 stocks, of which 42 advanced, 44 declined, and 16 traded firm. Stocks advanced for Access Financial Services Limited, Barita Investments Limited, and Blue Power Group Limited. Stocks declined for Berger Paints Jamaica Limited, Cargo Handlers Limited, and the Caribbean Assurance Brokers Limited. Trading firm were 138 Student Living Jamaica Limited, AMG Packaging and Paper Company Limited, and Epley 7.50% preference shares due 2024. The overall volume leaders were Edufocal Limited with over 4 million units, One Great Studio Company Limited with over 3 million units, and One-on-One Educational Services Limited with over 1 million units. In regional stocks in Trinidad and Tobago, the mutual fund market did not record any activity. On the Barbados Stock Exchange, Government of Barbados Bond Series B was the volume leader with over 8,000 shares. They were followed by Goddard Enterprises Limited and the Epley Caribbean Property Fund Development Fund, which traded 4,200 shares respectively. In regional business, EXL Guyana Incorporated is stepping into the agricultural sector in hopes of helping farmers increase their yields and contribute to the wider Caribbean community goal of slashing food imports by 25% by 2025 through partnering with United Kingdom's EcoStim. EXL CEO Chris Sammy explained how this new project can be a game changer for local farmers.
As a company, we look to partner with foreign companies that are looking to come into Guyana. EXL has been quite a platform assisting foreign companies who are looking to engage in different sectors in Guyana, whether it's mining, agriculture, oil and gas, technology, and so forth. We're here launching our master distribution agreement with a company called EcoStem. And EcoStem is a company out of the UK, found its way to us through the embassy, and we're excited to actually partner with this company to bring their what we call is a biostimulant product for the agriculture sector for planting and better farming, and we're excited to actually bring that product here to Guyana. We have had meetings with Agriculture Minister Zulfikar. We've met with NARI. We're going to be launching a pilot project for not only rice, pilot project for beans, soybeans, crops like tomato, pepper, and so forth. What EcoStem has is a biostimulant, which is like a soil nutrient. What it does is it increases the actual veracity of the plant, thereby decreasing the need for fertilizer. This is a product that's being used very extensively in many African countries, including Southeast Asia, and some of the yield differential that they've been experiencing over the previous 5 years has been yields of 25% to 35% better yield off the crop. And we're excited to actually bring them here to Guyana, and understanding how the landscape is in Guyana, we will help to navigate how to get this into the farming community with the farmers now being on site with a new product coming into the market that will help them not only do better farming, but also increasing the yields that they get, which obviously increases the bottom line. Farming is not an easy undertaking. It's hard work. And if we can help now by bringing products that will help them work less and make more, and not only that, help our government with a greater initiative of reducing our food import bill by 25%. I think this is enormous. And then increasing our export. This is enormous, making our farmers more money. But to do that, we would have to embrace technology. We would have to embrace new methods of how to maybe deal with soil conditions.
In international business, major U.S. stock indexes ended sharply lower as investors worried about the spread of the Israel-Hamas war, as well as the possibility of further rate hikes by the Federal Reserve.
The Dow dropped nearly 0.9%, the S&P 500 tumbled almost 1.3%, and the Nasdaq plunged more than 1.5%. All 11 of the S&P 500's sectors fell in broad-based selling.
I still think that there's a lot of things impacting the market.
Marianne Bartels is Chief Investment Strategist at Sanctuary Wealth.
We're in earnings season now. That's impacting the market. There's concerns about what's happening over in the Middle East. The real big concern, and I think what's really the equity market has been sensitive to, is the bond market, because we've seen 10-year Treasury yields rising. And so there's a number of factors that are driving the market through this whole week, and I expect can continue to actually impact the market through the rest of the month.
The benchmark 10-year Treasury yield pulled back a bit a day after crossing 5% for the first time since July 2007. The upward move coming after Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell on Thursday said the economy's strength and tight labor markets could require tougher borrowing conditions to control inflation. In earnings news, shares of Regions Financial stumbled more than 12% to their lowest level since March of 2020. The bank expects fourth quarter net interest income to decline about 5% compared with the preceding 3 months as banks pay more to retain deposits. The KBW Regional Banking Index closed down 3.5%. Shares of credit card company American Express fell nearly 5.5%, even though its third quarter profit beat expectations. And shares of Solar Edge slumped more than 27% after it warned of significantly lower revenue in the fourth quarter.
In market data for oil prices slipped on Monday as investors continued to focus on the situation in the Middle East, where diplomatic efforts are intensifying in an attempt to contain the conflict between Israel and Hamas. Brent crude futures fell 41 cents to $91.75 a barrel, and West Texas Intermediate crude futures were down 55 cents at $87.53 a barrel. And that was the business report on PBCJ. I'm Danita Rodney.
In regional news, a memorandum of understanding was signed by the governments of Guyana and Cuba for the provision of technical assistance services in forestry and agriculture in Guyana. We have more in this report.
The aim of the MOU seeks to establish a general framework of collaboration between the Ministries of Agriculture in Cuba and Guyana, with an emphasis on agriculture and vegetable products, livestock and animal products, beekeeping, forestry, and other areas of interest. The MOU was signed between the Director General of the Ministry, Madam Lal Ramraj, Permanent Secretary of the Ministry, Delman Ned, and Cuban Ambassador to Guyana, Jorge Francisco Subaran Lewis, at the Arthur Chung Conference Center Saturday morning.
The government is responding to the apiculture industry. Guyana Forest has a great potential for apiculture. If exploited, it can create employment and sustainable income for the population residing in the hinterland areas. Guyana has several hectares of land that is mostly unserved with respect to beekeeping and provide tremendous potential for the expansion of the apiculture industry, and will follow for the and will allow for the increase in production of honey to meet the 2025 initiative, allowing Guyana to become an exporter of honey in CARICOM.
Meanwhile, Ambassador Lewis emphasized how crucial it is to sign the MOU to advance food production and security in the region.
We believe this is a very important step towards achieving a greater food security and food production in our region. As both the leaders of Cuba and Guyana have stated, We should join efforts and we should join forces in order to make our capabilities come together to strengthen our production and our technical assistance.
Antigua and Barbuda's ambassador to the United States and the Organization of American States, Sir Ronald Saunders, says Trinidad and Tobago's Prime Minister, Dr. Keith Rowley, should be lauded, not criticized, over his dress code at the end of the Canada CARICOM summit earlier last week. TTT News has more.
In a post via social media, Sir Ronald says regrettable comments have been made on Facebook that do a great injustice to Prime Minister Rowley, who was an outstanding voice at the Canada CARICOM meeting on the issues that are important to us as a region. Sir Ronald further states, "I can attest to this because I sat next to him at all sessions of the meeting." And he points out the circumstances of Dr. Rowley's attire for media conference with Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, where that the conference chair, Prime Minister Roosevelt Skerrit of Dominica, had to leave early because of the prospect of Hurricane Tammy hitting his country. He notes Prime Minister Rowley had dressed to leave the hotel for the multiple airplane journeys to Trinidad and Tobago, but in the absence of Prime Minister Skerrit, Dr. Rowley was pressed into service at the very last minute. Sir Ronald says Prime Minister Rowley stepped up to the plate, and even though he was drafted with no prior notice, he spoke well for all.
The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia included St. Kitts and Nevis among 6 new countries to benefit from e-visas. SKN Newsline has the details.
The other countries are Turkey, Thailand, Seychelles, Mauritius, and Panama. The e-visas will be issued for purposes of leisure, business, and religious purposes, according to the 16th October edition of Arabian Business. Previous to Panama and St. Kitts and Nevis being added, only 2 other countries in the Americas were granted e-visas. These countries are Canada and the United States of America. The former Minister of Foreign Affairs for St. Kitts and Nevis, Premier Mark Brantley, commended Foreign Affairs Minister Dr. Denzel Douglas and his team at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for what he described as, quote, a huge diplomatic win for our small country, unquote. Brantley indicated that it has implications for the Citizenship by Investment program and for investment generally. According to the information, the e-visas will feature a QR code that will contain all the necessary data and information on the passenger. Glenn Bart reporting for SK Newsline.
An earthquake with a magnitude 4.0 on the Richter scale struck sections of the Eastern Caribbean late Friday. The seismic event, recorded by the University of the West Indies Seismic Research Center, occurred at 9:07 p.m. The earthquake was centered at a depth of 10 kilometers and was felt in Barbados, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and St. Lucia. There was no report of injuries or damage. In international news, the Philippines has summoned Beijing's ambassador over 2 collisions between Philippine and Chinese vessels in the South China Sea. The countries have blamed each other for the incidents on Sunday. They were between a Chinese ship and a Filipino vessel that was supplying troops on an outpost in disputed waters. Al Jazeera's Barnaby Lowe reports.
The Philippines and China blaming each other for collisions that happened in the South China Sea on Sunday morning. The Philippines saying it was dangerous maneuvers by Chinese vessels trying to block the path of Philippine vessels on the way to the Second Thomas Shoal, carrying provisions for Filipino troops stationed there, that caused these collisions.
Continued Chinese blocking and interference by Chinese vessels with our regular and routine rotation and resupply missions RORE to BRP Sierra Madre may lead to disastrous results.
China meanwhile saying a Philippine supply boat cut across the bow of one of its Coast Guard vessels and a Philippine supply boat reversing, hitting one of its maritime militia vessels.
The actions of the Philippine side seriously violated international maritime collision avoidance rules, threatening the navigation safety of our vessels.
Now, tensions have been running high between Manila and Beijing for almost the entire year over this territorial dispute in the South China Sea. In February, Chinese sailors directed military-grade laser against their Filipino counterparts, and months later, they used water cannon. China, of course, lays claim over almost the entire South China Sea, but this particular area where the collisions took place is 200 kilometers from the westernmost province of the Philippines, and so Manila insists that it has sovereign rights over this area of the South China Sea. Barnaby, Al Jazeera, Manila.
In sports, Jamaica's Reggae Girls lost to Mexico 7-0 as the women's football competition opened at the 2023 Pan American Games in Santiago, Chile on the weekend. The Jamaican football squad is largely inexperienced as the island's top players were due to compete in the qualifiers for next year's CONCACAF Women's Gold Cup on dates which clashed with the Pan American Games. The senior Reggae Girls, who went to the recent FIFA Women's World Cup, have since withdrawn from the squad for the Gold Cup qualifiers due to what they described as continued mistreatment by the Jamaica Football Federation, the JFF. The JFF has called up a new squad for the Women's Gold Cup qualifiers. They will play Panama away on Wednesday, October 25, before hosting Guatemala at the National Stadium on October 29. Jamaica's next match at the Games is against Paraguay on Wednesday. And that's the news on PBCJ. You can follow us on our social media platforms at PBCJamaica. Thank you so much for watching.